What's up, everybody? It's your boy Ryan, and this is the Thunder Channel on Nootropics and a lot of other stuff. Going to talk about a Racetam alternative today, and look, the nootropics community has been freaking out because Racetam's in one vendor, the vendor that everyone's used to going to, Nootropics Depot, have been a little hard to find over the course of the last 4 or 5 months, and supply chain issues, potentially regulatory issues are at the root of that. But again, plenty of other companies are still moving Racetams like Nootropics Source and some other companies out there, and you've just got to get your sources straight and get good quality Racetams and you should be fine. But I wanted to discuss a Racetam alternative for those of you that are just sort of looking for other compounds to take that will induce similar brain states and work mechanistically similarly to Aniracetam, Oxiracetam, etc. In the event that you just want something else to have as an alternative. I think that's always a good idea. What supports this broadcast is a couple epic nootropic and male performance products. Here they are. Number one, the Cortex Nootropic Stack. Powerful pre-made stack. I mean, look, if you just want to turn on mental energy, motivation, the drive to work, that stimulatory sort of dopamine-esque drive, get a bottle of Cortex. Do that at livecortex.com. Get Cortex, livecortex.com. The best way to get it is on subscription, my friends. Auto ship it to your doorstep. I can promise you it will be useful to have continuously shipped your way. Courses on nootropics. Look, if you're brand new, Nootropics Ground Zero is where you have to be. If you're in a couple years and want to ascend to the 6-year mark, get the Nootropics Masterclass. If you want the highest level nootropics course there is, and these courses, by the way, teach you how to strategically use nootropics in ways which get you better results. I am the inventor of nootropics methodology, and plenty of people are using them incorrectly. We teach you how to get good results with these courses. Highest level course is the God course. Get that at livecortex.com. If you have to raise your testosterone, you have two options. You can either work with me personally, and we will raise your testosterone over a 3 to 6 month period, and that is called Testosterone Plus. It is a consulting program. Or you could go at it alone and get the Testosterone Superclass, which will save you some money, and then execute the protocols within the Testosterone Superclass. Okay, so the compound in question here is called Sunifaram. Sunifaram is a Racetam alternative, and primarily because it is an ampakine. Okay, ampakine basically just means like some of the potent Racetams like Aniracetam and Oxiracetam, that it is binding to AMPA receptors, a glutamate subtype receptor. What that usually fosters is long-term potentiation at the binding sites or near the binding sites, right, relative to the region of the brain where this binding is taking place. And for the Racetams in general, that's the hippocampus, right? And so that's where you're forcing memory to happen, better working memory to happen, which is a good thing. In fact, on the research on this, it's very clear that Sunifaram is influencing LTP in the hippocampus, okay? Point number one, which makes it very relevant to Racetams. Sunifaram shows enhanced acetylcholine secretion from the prefrontal cortex. Now this is super classic what makes it comparable to Racetams, right? Because Aniracetam, Oxiracetam, phenylpiracetam, piracetam, they're working on acetylcholine in somewhat different ways. I mean, the classical Racetams, Aniracetam, Oxiracetam are forcing hippocampal cholinergic release, which I would say Sunifaram is closest to in terms of mechanisms of action. One of the most standout things about Aniracetam, Oxiracetam, and other Racetams is that they are deemed neuroprotective in the presence of an anticholinergic drug or anticholinergic chemical, a chemical that blocks the functioning of acetylcholine. So if you put a person in that condition and then bring Aniracetam in, it acts as a neuroprotectant agent in that it will keep acetylcholine functioning relatively normally, even in the presence of something that typically stands to block it. And Sunifaram does the same thing. Okay, so it prevents amnesia induced by scopolamine. Scopolamine is the primary compound that is used in a lot of the Racetam studies to block acetylcholine. Then the Racetam comes in and basically nils that effect and allows acetylcholine to function normally. The same thing happens with Sunifaram. But interestingly, there's other studies on other anticholinergics too, where it's proven to be effective, like baclofen, diphenhydramine, and clonidine. Okay, all of these have been noted to essentially be inhibited in their action to inhibiting cholinergic function with soniferam in the mix, which is very, very cool. And sort of offers the notion that perhaps it's neuroprotective too. This is the odd part, the dose range. The dose range is nowhere near any other racetam, and a choline source may or may not be warranted. So the dose range on soniferam is 5 to 10 milligrams. 5 to 10 milligrams, right? It's a very, very potent amphetamine. You do not need to be dosing very, very high doses of it. This possibly could be super efficient for a lot of you folks too, looking to not necessarily, again, make the change to something new, but have alternatives to racetams in the event that your favorite vendor is out of one racetam or the other, or that you just want to sort of be breaking it up and sort of switching things up. Let me just tell you how personally I operate with it. So I take 5 milligrams of it, and then I run 50 milligrams of citicoline. That's it, right? Now, I may add on to that because soniferam, I think the only difference that I subjectively notice is that it's not as stimulant-like as some of the other racetams. I just feel a crisper, clearer brain, and my brain works faster and more efficiently. It's like there's less gunk built up in between neurons or something. That's how I picture it. When I go to speak, when I go to action, when I'm using my brain on productivity related stuff, that's just kind of where I'm at. But it doesn't stimulate me as much as aniracetam or oxiracetam would, sort of that stimulant response. So I usually just take teacrine with it. So my kind of typical dose, therefore, with soniferam looks like this. It's 5 milligrams soniferam, it's 100 milligrams of teacrine, and it's 50 milligrams of citicoline. Now that dose there and that strategy there, for me, gets me very comparable responses to taking something like 500 milligrams of aniracetam, my choline source, and then going to town on something, which there's a lot of situations in which that is very useful, especially multitasking and especially sitting down to do silos of work. How long does it last? This is maybe a drawback of soniferam compared to some of the other racetams. Now look, traditionally they have short half-lives, meaning they only really last 2 to 4 hours, and then basically you really don't notice that the racetam is in the mix after that time frame. Soniferam is the same, but perhaps a little bit less even, right? A little bit less than 2 or 3 hours. I mean, for me, at the hour 45, hour 50, 2 hour mark, I'm pretty much noticing it fading away. And at the 2.5 hour mark, I really can't see an instance in which I actually notice better brain performance. So, you know, look, I mean, 2 hours of good hard charging brain performance, assuming you're efficient, is very useful. A singular dose in and of itself is really only going to last 2 hours, 3 hours max. So that's really the only drawback or downside. In all the research, there are no toxicity that was found. Doesn't mean dose it very high, because again, you shouldn't dose it any higher than 10 milligrams. That the dose range is 5 to 10 for a reason. But you know, there aren't any reported negative sides or toxicity, which is always good when, you know, trying to find an alternative to something that we know is very safe, like racetams, and that, you know, affects our brain performance healthfully. So let's talk about sources. You know, sources are something that usually for various reasons I can't really give you on this. I guess it depends on the compound, right? I would look into a company called Lift Mode, no affiliation, known them for quite some time. I believe they have soniferam. If they don't, I know that the source, Nootropics Source, should have soniferam, and that's really where I would couch it. I can guarantee you can probably find some soniferam in either one of those companies. I would just stick with what's tried and true. But again, once you get soniferam in and you're trying to experiment with it, I would really suggest starting at the 5 milligram dose range, getting a modest choline source in there, bringing a stimulant in the mix like teacrine or dynamine or theobromine, maybe even caffeine, and just seeing how you fare. The important thing to note is that pay less attention to the actual feel of it, so like how it is making you feel, because nootropics are not, you know, recreational drugs. I mean, I want to hammer that point home. They are more improving cognitive performance, and you can notice that at baseline for sure. It depends on how aware you are, but you notice it a lot more when you're engaging in work. Your brain being able to function fast and smooth and in depth really matters insofar as how good the experience is and how productive you are. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. It's been great being with you. Go check out some of our other videos. If you are new to this channel, please subscribe. We pump out 2 to 3 to 4, sometimes 6, sometimes 7 videos a week, and we do 2 live streams weekly. Another one coming up very soon, probably tomorrow evening, Monday evening. So pay attention to that. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to get notified of all the stuff that we do, because there is 1,200 videos at this point, and there's going to be 1,000 more coming. Go to livecortex.com and get some epic male performance enhancement products. I mean, we cover everything from the brain side to the testosterone side, right? What makes you function awesomely as a guy. So the Cortex stack, that is our pre-made nootropic stack. Look, I made it 7 years ago, built it for entrepreneurs initially, but I mean, everybody that needs brain performance can benefit from it. High stimulant, dopamine-centered nootropic. Go get Cortex at livecortex.com. Courses on how to teach you how to use nootropics. I mean, look, all the various, like what I just talked about. If you want to learn every nootropic in the book and detailed strategies on how to use them, stuff you will not find on the web. Beginner's level, Nootropics Ground Zero. Mid-level, Nootropics Masterclass. Advanced elite level, Nootropics God Course. These are all video courses which are highly advanced to teach you how to use nootropics in a way which get you significant responses. Lastly, testosterone. You've got two options. You can either work with me personally over the course of 3 to 6 months, in which case we will raise your testosterone. That is called Testosterone Plus. It's a consulting program. Or you can go at it alone and get the Testosterone Superclass and start executing some of the protocols within it on your own. Completely up to you. Thank you so much for being with me, everybody. Talk to you next time.